I'm now going to do all the animation for these layers to get a continuously scrolling animation like I previewed before. First thing I want to do in the timeline is set the length of the animation. So I click on the palette menu. You probably can't see the entire thing. All the way down at the bottom is document settings. Document settings. 10 seconds is a long time for the image to scroll. So I'm going to make it 3 seconds. The frame rate is set to 29.97, which is the standard video frame rate, drop frame. In animation, it's nice to have a more logical number, like 30 frames per second. Over the course of a half-hour television show, the difference between 29.97 and 30 does become significant, but in a 3-second animation, we're really just talking about 90 frames. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is animate the background. I'm going to find my background in the animation palette. And when I click on the stopwatch, it's going to create a keyframe. I'm going to create a keyframe for our starting position. Click, keyframe. So at time 0, we're here. To create a new keyframe and create animation, I'm going to go to the end time and create a new keyframe by changing the value of position. So with the move tool, I am going to move the background to the end. Doing that created a new keyframe at the end. Now this keyframe, this position, is the same as the position at the beginning, which is almost what we want. We don't want to repeat the same frame twice, however. That'll be like a pause that happens in our animation. So this last keyframe, I'm going to nudge over 1 frame past the end of our animation, so we never quite get there. Or rather, we don't get to that position again until we loop back to the beginning. If I hit play, we should see a continuously scrolling background. And when it gets to the end, there's no pause, but it continues straight around to the beginning again. Alright, so that's fine for the background. What about the rocks? The rocks should be scrolling in a similar way. In fact, I could have animated them together with the background. I probably should have. But I'm going to animate them separately now. The thing is that I want to get them to line up exactly. Maybe I will put a little guide here so I know when we get back to the beginning. Okay, so here we are at frame 0. I'm going to open up the rocks. Tell it I'm animating the position of the rocks. And now I'm going to go to the end. And I'm going to use the Shift key and the left arrow to nudge these across until I get the other set of rocks, which don't seem to exist. Let me go back the other direction. Apparently I was looking at the wrong set of rocks. Okay, so at time 0, okay, so here at the end of time, we want to see, I love it when I make mistakes, this set of rocks. At the beginning of time, we want to see these rocks. So when we scroll through, it matches. And if I move this keyframe over 1 more, just like we did with the background, there shouldn't be a pause at the end. All right, continuously scrolling rocks and background. Now for the hero animation. I open up that layer. At time 0, I turn on animation, and I have a keyframe there. It clears this rock. Now I want to force it to make a keyframe. Normally, I create a new keyframe by changing the position of the layer, and it creates a keyframe for me. Here, the position does not change, but if I click here, it will create a keyframe locking that position in at this time. Then when I go forward to here, when I change the position, notice that it automatically creates a keyframe for me. So from this keyframe to this keyframe, the position is unchanged. From this keyframe to this keyframe, it's interpolating the position. If I go forward in time, about here, I want to make another adjustment. So I'm going to force a keyframe, go forward to here. Now at this point, we're at the end of the animation. We want its position to match where it was at the beginning. The way I'm going to do that is copy the keyframe from the beginning and put it at the end. So here I've selected this keyframe. I'm going to right click to copy that keyframe, then move to the end, and right clicking on one of these keyframes, I'm going to paste. The paste happens at the end. Now, having it in the same position 2 frames in a row, it's probably okay, but I'm going to go ahead and nudge it over so we have the same continuity we had with the other keyframes. The only other thing I was doing in the animation before was animating the opacity of the shadow. We can go ahead and do that. If I select the shadow layer, notice that at the beginning it's at 68% opacity. So let's find the shadow layer, open it up, tell it we want to animate the opacity. And what I'm going to do is go to the end, force the keyframe, since we're going to want to end up at the same opacity at the end. But now I'm going to use this arrow to advance to the next position for the hero. And I see the level hasn't changed, so I don't want the opacity to change. So I'm going to force a keyframe there. Now if I go back up to the hero layer, advance to the next keyframe, this is where it's dropped down. As it drops down, I want the opacity to increase, a darker shadow. Let's make it 80%. So as it's going down, there's going to be a slight darkening of the shadow. Then I want it to hold while it's at the same level. So I'm going to force a keyframe there. And then it's going to go up to that level. Okay, so this is pretty subtle. A little darker as it goes down, a little lighter as it goes up, darker, lighter, darker, lighter. And that's the animation in Photoshop.